approved by Parliament in 2018 and signed into law last year. It was hospitals and healthcare facilities, medical suppliers, pharmacies and healthcare funders. Second, we are working with retailers and large food producers now to ensure that the supply chain from the farm through the factory to the shops remains strong and that basic goods are available to our people. Factories have reported that their production is stable and farmers have promised us a bumper maize crop this year. We have seen, however, a spike in stockpiling over the weekend and for much of this week in some retail outlets. It tapered off, it decreased somewhat yesterday. At the same time, there is anecdotal evidence of price spikes in areas such as face masks and hand sanitizers. We are appreciative that the majority of South Africans have not rushed to the stores and have indeed remained calm. Working with retailers and the regulators in the past few days, all major retailers have now put limits on at least basic products in their stores. This has helped to calm panic buying. There's also been excellent cooperation from the retailers with government. They have committed to help us ensure that there are no unjustified price increases in this period. The retail groups include Shoprite Checkers, Pick n Pay, Woolworths, Spar, Game, Dion and Macro, as well as Clicks and Dis-Chem. Today, we issue directives under the Disaster Management Act and regulations under both the Competition Act and the Consumer Protection Act. These deal with pricing and supply matters during the national disaster to ensure that we do not have unjustified price hikes or stockpiling of goods. We are doing this to protect consumers and ensure fairness and promote social solidarity in this period. The regulations and directions provide for the following. On prices, price increases may not exceed the increase in the cost of the raw materials or inputs, and the profit level should not be hiked higher than in the period just before the outbreak of COVID-19. The regulations will cover the full supply chain and will limit price increases of suppliers in a similar fashion. On stockpiling, where people go into a shop and try to buy trolley loads of one product, all retailers will be required to take steps to limit the quantity of goods sold to any individual consumer, and a list of basic goods will be covered and gazetted. Retailers must take steps to maintain adequate stocks of basic goods during this period, including for weekends and month-end shopping. There are also provisions to ensure that wholesalers take steps to ensure that there's no stockpiling at the cash and carry retail and wholesale outlets. The regulations and the directions are based on the first instance on a partnership model that requires retailers and wholesalers to take prudent and responsible steps. The regulations and directives will allow government to take firmer measures if they become necessary, including setting limits on individual products. We do not believe that this will be necessary immediately, as we expect that by working together with the business community and our people, we can contain prices and limit any stockpiling. I want to point out that the breaches of the regulations can have serious consequences. Some of the penalties in the relevant legislation include penalties of up to R1 million, penalties of up to 10% of a company's turnover, or jail sentences of up to 1 year. We do not want to invoke any of these, as the best approach is one of partnership, and we welcome the solidarity and the positive response from our people in the last few days. But the regulators are ready to act. We have present here today Commissioner Tembinkosi Bonakele, the head of the Competition Commission, as well as Commissioner Tezi Mabuza, the head of the National Consumer Commission. The Consumer Commission will have a toll-free hotline that can be used by our people to report increases in prices that are unjustified, and the number will be made available to the media today. We'll also send, it's just been gazetted as we started the press conference, so copies of the regulations and the directives will be forwarded to the media this afternoon. The two regulators will also be available for any of the media queries immediately after the press briefing. Thank you very much.
If you also want the commissioners to come in, they can.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Let me just respond to the Sunday Times question. The new regulations and the directions come into effect immediately. Today, the 19th of March, the Gazette has been published, and we will make copies of the Gazette available electronically to all the media. In respect of the EWN question, as my colleague Minister Mthembu has indicated, today we want to focus principally on the regulations. There will be more detailed briefing that we'll arrange on the economy, but I want to indicate that we're working very hard on mitigation plans. Of course, the most immediate thing is to save lives and prevent the spread of the virus. That already has a positive impact on the economy. Secondly, we're putting in place a number of measures to help companies and individuals that are displaced by the effects of the virus. These will include a special fund for companies in distress. They will include what we call a temporary employer-employee relief scheme. They will also include redirecting our efforts from current government spending and support to efforts linked to the virus. For example, we won't do export promotion in the normal way, but we'll assist exporters now who's got their goods on the water or stranded elsewhere. And we also try to find opportunity where, in fact, we can get more economic activity for our own producers. And there will be measures dealing with small and medium enterprises. The Minister of Finance is dealing with a number of issues relating to the economy. So it's work done across all of government. As soon as we're ready, we will be making these announcements, and I think that covers that area. On the procurement of resources by ETV, I think my colleague, Minister Lamola, has responded to that. I want to take the opportunity, if I may, Minister Mthembu, to invite first through you Commissioner Tembi Bonakele and then Commissioner Tezi Mabuza, the respective heads of the Competition Commission and of the National Consumer Commission, to say a few words here today. Their job is to ensure that we enforce the new regulations, and they are ready to ensure that we give effect to these and that we have the stability that we all need. Commissioner Bonakele, if you may want to come forward, and if Commissioner Mabuza could come in the meantime.
We would like to give you as much information as we are able to give you, particularly when we are with commissioners here who are doing a wonderful job. We wouldn't like them to leave here without having assured you of the work that you are doing, what they are doing, particularly around issues of competition and pricing.
Thank you very much, Minister Mthembu, honorable ministers. In times like this, we, as the Competition Commission, recognize that there are areas where the law would need to be relaxed, but there are also areas where it would need to be strengthened. And Minister Patel has already explained those areas where there is some relaxation in the form of exemptions this is where industry needs to coordinate in a manner that ordinarily would have been described as collusion, which would have been a contravention. So those industries, in this case, the first candidate has been the healthcare sector. It has been exempted to conduct all of these consultations that are necessary for them to respond to the crisis. Insofar as other sectors are concerned, we are worried there about excessive pricing and price gouging. Ourselves, Competition Commission, as well as the National Consumer Protection Commission, are working very closely together to make sure that we stamp such conduct out. We have, as the Competition Commission, powers to prosecute excessive pricing, and we have been issued with regulations that provide a guide on how we should enforce during this period of this crisis. And this will be really areas where there are price increases, where there has been no cost, input cost justification that should have triggered the price increases. So we will be watching for those, but we are really dependent on the public to inform us when there are such unusual price increases. We will give a number. We will all be using the same number together with the National Consumer Commission, the toll-free number that people could call. They could also go to our websites where they can inform us of what is going on in the markets. We also have been talking to our courts, because we both have specialist courts, so that when these cases are brought to our attention, they can be investigated and prosecuted on an expedited basis. So the Competition Commission will fast-track its investigations, and the Competition Tribunal will also fast-track its hearings. My colleague will announce the number. I don't want to take too much time, where all of these cases can be reported. We are calling upon not just members of the public, but also participants in markets, such as retailers, that when they face price increases from suppliers, because sometimes retailers themselves buy from intermediaries. So when they face those unusual price increases, they should inform authorities so that at least they can be monitoring and transparency of pricing during this crisis period. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sisi.
And good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you for the opportunity. As my colleague has said, from our side as the National Consumer Commission, we'll be focusing mostly on the unconscionable, unfair, unreasonable, and unjust pricing. This is really to look at the downside of the market where consumers are concerned. And what is really also an issue here is to make sure that at retail price, consumers have access to essential goods. And that is why now, even in the regulation, we're looking at ensuring that while consumers have a right to buy as much as they want, there is a responsibility on our retailers to make sure that at least there is equitable share of some of the resources, especially to make sure that those consumers that would have their salaries maybe by Friday or maybe at the end of the month, that they also have access to those goods. So the limitation of rights here would be imposed from the supplier side to make sure that there is rationing where we can. And also what is really important for us is the issue of misleading of information. We have now even observed, as Minister has said, wherein we have seen that other products are packaged that could be saying that they would be containing certain ingredients that are not there, and also the issue of the pricing. And then, as my colleague has said, we are really dependent on all South Africans to inform us so that we can take decisive actions. And then in the enforcement side, instead of following the route that we would follow of people complaining, in this instance, we will be looking at trends. So we've established a number, which is a toll-free number, is 0800 014 880. For people just to call us and give us information, the number is 0800 014 880. And we have also set up a special Twitter handle, which is @NCC_COVID-19. This is to allow people that if you have picked up a price, you know that today you've bought a sanitizer for, let's say 30 Rand, and next week it jumps up to like 60 Rand. That would mean that we have to justify the jump in price. So that is where now we want you to give us as much information, because we will be looking at the trends instead of just looking at individual complaints. So we are dependent on you and also on every consumer to play their part. But what is important is, as a consumer, please don't hide. Make sure that if your hands are clean, but your neighbor's hands are not clean, it doesn't help any of us. So let us help each other here or one another. Thank you. Thank you.